Monza. A filming day. No pressure. No points. But somewhere inside that garage, something changed forever. Because what Nico Rosberg saw in that data, simple test numbers from a single afternoon, was an improvement. It was a warning. And the rest of the grid has no idea what's coming. Has Ferrari just unlocked a monster they couldn't control all season? And is Lewis Hamilton the only man alive who knew where the key was hiding? To understand why Rosberg was shocked, you have to understand how bad things actually were. Ferrari didn't arrive at Monza as a team on the rise. They arrived as a team bleeding questions. Race after race, the SF26 exposed the same wound. Not a general slowness. Something more specific. More dangerous. The hybrid system, the MGU-K, was killing them on the straights. Power delivery was unstable. Recovery was inconsistent. And rivals knew exactly where to attack. Under the new regulations, the MGU-K carries 350 kilowatts of brutal energy per lap. It can make enormous differences. And Ferrari was losing that battle every single weekend. Hamilton himself had flagged it publicly after the early races. It wasn't a secret anymore. It was a pattern. And patterns in Formula One don't fix themselves. So Ferrari made a decision. Not a small tweak. Not a setup adjustment. They brought a deeply modified car to Monza. Changes close to 50% of the total package. Not evolution, reinterpretation. A team doesn't do that unless they feel the original concept is fundamentally broken. That's the context Rosberg walked into when he started analyzing that data. But that was just the start. Because what happened next changed everything. Rosberg didn't react like a pundit watching a promising test. He reacted like an engineer watching something that shouldn't be happening yet. Because the improvement wasn't just in lap times. It was where the improvement appeared. Directly on the straights. Directly in energy deployment. Directly in the sections where Ferrari had been consistently, measurably, embarrassingly weak all season. That hole, the one every rival circled on their strategy boards, was closing. And here's where the first twist hits. Normally, when a car improves, it favors one driving style over another. Aggressive drivers gain more. Conservative drivers gain less. That's just physics. But at Monza, that wasn't happening. Both Hamilton and Leclerc were reproducing the same performance. Consistently. Lap after lap. Regardless of their completely different styles. That's extremely rare. And Rosberg knew exactly what it meant. The car hadn't just gotten faster. It had become predictable. And in Formula One, a predictable car is the most dangerous weapon on the grid. Here's what really set off every alarm inside Rosberg's analysis. It wasn't one number. It wasn't one sector. It was the consistency of what Ferrari was showing across the entire data set. The energy delivery on the straights, previously Ferrari's greatest liability, was suddenly stable. The power drop that Mercedes had been exploiting all season, disappearing. The recovery efficiency, completely reconfigured. This wasn't a patch. This was a structural fix. And when the engineers inside Maranello began comparing simulations with what was happening on track, the correlation began to improve. That means the improvements didn't just work, they worked better than expected. When that happens in Formula One, the impact isn't only in the present. It rewrites everything that comes after. Vasseur wasn't just looking at faster lap times. He was looking at data that suggested the SF26 had been operating below its real performance window for the entire season. Not because the car was wrong, but because nobody had unlocked it correctly. Until Hamilton arrived on that filming day and found performance in places where it simply didn't exist before. That is the moment Rosberg called shocking. Not the stopwatch. What was behind the stopwatch? If this data transfers to real race conditions, three things change immediately. First, the drivers. Hamilton has now become the reference point inside Ferrari. He found the key. Development decisions, setup directions, even technical philosophy. All of it will now orbit around what he felt and contributed at Monza. That doesn't displace Leclerc, but it introduces a new dynamic that Ferrari cannot ignore. Second, the championship. Ferrari was being read by rivals like an open book. Attack them on the straights. Exploit the energy deficit. Force them into compromise strategies. That playbook is now potentially useless. If Ferrari's greatest weakness disappears, rivals are forced out of their comfort zones. And in Formula One, when you push beyond your comfort zone, mistakes happen. Third, Miami. Because the next test isn't a controlled filming day. It's a full race weekend. Real pressure. real competition, real consequences. Everything Ferrari discovered at Monza either gets confirmed in Miami or it evaporates under the heat of a championship battle. And that's what Vasseur understood in that garage. This wasn't just a technical moment. It was a strategic turning point. Every decision Ferrari makes from here carries more weight, more risk, more consequence. Scenario 1. Ferrari confirms the Monza data in Miami. Hamilton leads from the front. The team that was chasing suddenly starts dictating pace. And Rosberg's warning becomes the moment everyone remembers as the turning point of the season. Scenario 2. The performance doesn't transfer. The controlled environment of Monza was exactly that, controlled. Miami exposes the gaps again. And Ferrari's internal expectations crash harder than any race result could. Scenario 3. The SF26 works. Both drivers find performance. But the internal dynamic shifts entirely toward Hamilton. And Ferrari faces a different kind of problem, not speed, but politics. Because in Formula One, solving one crisis rarely means you've escaped the next. Was Monza the beginning of Ferrari's real season? Or a perfectly timed illusion? Can Hamilton sustain what he unlocked? Or does the pressure of Miami erase everything? One thing is certain, Rosberg doesn't shock easily. He's seen data that moves championships. And what he saw from Ferrari's filming day didn't just surprise him. It worried him. That alone should tell you everything about what's coming next.